humans dealt with violence by battling and adjusting to climatic assaults. The harshness of nature likely kept them together and striving for survival. However, humans' predatory inclinations towards other humans gradually increased and surpassed the menace of nature's viciousness. Human barbarism peaked on a worldwide scale of 600 years ago when the slave trade expanded across continents. Slavery, colonialism, imperialism, and neocolonial tendencies all meet and fall short of their potential. Today, we live in more liberated environments in which the mere mention of these vices causes friction and trauma, particularly to those who have been victimized. For the descendants of those who perpetrated this evil, hidden with words that feel politically correct can be entertaining. The African continent is infamous for its poverty and corruption, but no one can take the part or no one can ignore the part slavery, colonialism, imperialism, and neocolonialism played and are still playing on our poverty index. Despite broad criticism of colonialism, including apologies from certain European head of states, it is heartbreaking to see few miseducated activists supporting a return to colonialism for political correct reasons. Eric Prince, an American billionaire, former U.S. Navy SEAL officer and founder of the private military corporation Blackwater, made headlines last week for the wrong reasons. He publicly advised the United States to recolonize Africa. Is it a good idea to enable a new wave of colonization in the hope of eradicating corruption and other political irregularities? Can the recolonization of Africa solve the continent's current geopolitical and economic problems? We want to know what you think, even while we brainstorm on this platform. As usual, our panelists today are Tega King, a political pundit, singer, and a writer, and Paul Honkney, an author, poet, LLM student in international law, and political consultant. Welcome to Africans React. My name is Olivia Quincy. So, Paul, is it a good idea to enable a new wave of colonization in the hope of eradicating corruption and other political irregularities?
Quincy, I tell you what, it is a perfect idea. In fact, this is one of the best ideas I've heard of for a very long time. Considering what is happening in Africa, you would side with me that we are ungovernable democratically. You see, the main essence for attaining independence, especially we started with Ghana and sub-Saharan Africa, was for us to have a democratic way of system of rule. But it appears we don't kowtow to the mantra of democracy. For instance, just look at our neighbors, what is happening? The influx of coup d'etats. You see, this doesn't sound well. Okay, now let's have this brief history so that we are able to have an apprehension of what I want us to analyze today, Quincy and Tega. So you would recall that between the years of 1500 to 1900, there was actually a scramble for Africa. And then there were these 6 major European countries that colonized. In fact, these 6 European countries colonized the whole of North America, the whole of South America, and a vast amount of Africa, and even some parts of Asia. Okay, so these countries were Portugal, Spain, Britain, then Netherlands, France, and Belgium. Okay, you would notice that these countries having colonized us left, certain traits. They left certain marks. So you will see countries that were colonized by um, the Brits. You will see that there's a particular, way of behavior, their diet, their mode of dressing, their behavior, it's in sync. When you also take a look at countries that were colonized by the French, you would also notice similar patterns in their behavior, similar to so also applies when you look at countries that were colonized by Spain. But you would realize that even those countries that colonized, vast of Africa, are beginning to diminish. I can tell you that even with time, and just I'm saying from research that we are more likely to be able to colonize those who colonized us, because I've always said that population is power. When you have people, you have everything. These countries are beginning to decline in population. Even the country with the highest population among them is France, which has a little over 68 million. Okay, and then followed by the United Kingdom. But when you go to Portugal, their population is 10 million and they are even declining. So if these countries are declining, they gave us independence and we've outgrown them in population. We are beginning to match them boot for boot when it comes to technology and then in academia. And yet, these countries, remember, I said that we weren't, Africa wasn't the only continent to be colonized. In fact, the whole of North America was colonized. But how many coup d'etats have you seen ever since in North America? You get that? How many coup d'etats have you seen in those Asian countries that were also colonized, including India? America was also, colonized. So yes, I agree with Eric Prince on this. Tandem that if this is what is happening, then we actually need to be recolonized. It's just unfortunate that it's not the United States that will recolonize, because they didn't even colonize us in any way. They were actually even colonized by, the Brits. Okay, so now you see, my only problem is the personality of Eric Prince. This is an individual who, he walks his talk. He is not someone who just says something, and then it evaporates into thin air. Okay, he is an individual who has had, in fact, a lot of influence in Africa. There was even a scandal in Sudan about ammunition. He one of his line of businesses is also in ammunition. So this is an individual who knows his way too well in Africa, and he if he's beginning to say things like this, it means he's stepping on something. We there's a saying in the African parlance that when a blind man says he will stone you, then it means he stepped on a stone. So we need to actually be very careful with utterances like this that come. You see, now for instance, uh, look at the insurgents of Russia and Africa. What would convince us that we are not being recolonized? As it stands, Russia has military presence in about 10 African countries, including these countries that are having their, coups. You get that? Apart from military presence, there are about 20 countries again that Russia has, economic presence, political presence, and what have you. So if Russia is doing this, and you've also you see what is happening, what is beginning to brew between Russia and then the UK. Even just recently, last week, if my memory serves me right, a UK general, General Sanders, I think the name is, came out clearly to advocate that, all citizens should be trained on how to handle weapons because there was, a World War III, or is inevitable. Okay, so, and he was saying this based on, the tension between Russia and then them. So if Russia has already, occupied vast of Africa, and I'll give you a list of countries. I am not just going to say this out of thin air. So with military presence, for instance, Russia has military presence in Niger. Russia has military presence in Chad, Sudan, Cameroon, Kenya, Burundi, Tanzania, Angola, Zambia, Mozambique, Madagascar, and Botswana. Even in Ghana, as I say, Russia has economic presence. There's a company called Luke Oil. Luke Oil. Yes, in Ghana, when you the Luke Oil is spelled LUK, then oil OIL. Okay, it's a huge Russian company. They have a very strong presence in Ghana. You get that? So these are guys who are, that are serious. They also feel they want to liberate some portions of Africa. And if we are, exhibiting um, traits of coup and championing coup d'etats, then it is, breeding grounds for recolonization. It may not be those who colonize us that will recolonize us, because as I said, even those countries are beginning to decline.
Well, this morning I was talking to one guy, and he was telling me that our government has finally sold where we get our salt from, which is either China, or China has bought where we get our salt from. So basically, all our resources are even being sold to the foreigners already.
Yes, I will not be surprised by what the gentleman told you. And aside even selling some of these deposits to, foreign entities, there are certain agreements we enter into, there are certain treaties we sign as African nations that bind us to some of these Western countries or Asian countries or European countries. Sometimes when we enter these treaties, the documents are very voluminous that the people are not able to read them to the entirety. I tell you, there was, one agreement like that. It will come to me. I don't know whether if I will subject it to memory and see, but it should be around Sino Hydro or another one of such agreements. That, one of the terms, the T and Cs, was that um, in 50 years, the Chinese population could, come to Africa, to Ghana, sorry, to, like in a way of visa-free status, to also enjoy economic activity, free trade, and all that. So some of these treaties, some of these agreements we sign comes with it. Currently, China controls about 22.4% of the world's salt deposits. You see, so I will not be surprised if that is it. And the salt we have is the correct one, pure sodium chloride. Okay, so that is the salt that absorbs well in the human anatomy. So if I will not be surprised if that that is ongoing. So in the nutshell, what I want to add again is that there is a lot of mediocrity in Africa, and that is exactly what Eric Prince said. He said that what the governments in Africa are just syndicates, criminal syndicates that come together to create loot and share. And if you look across, if you cut across every most of the countries in Africa, it comes to play. Let's start with Ghana. Go to the two major political parties, NDC, NPP. Go and then find out who the leaders are. or how they tend to, I mean, elect flag bearers and leaders and all those, you would notice that it is not based on, I mean, merit. Okay, it is based on who knows who has, I mean, this financial muscle to pull a crowd. I mean, whose father was that, who belongs to this, I mean, occupation. It's not based on merit. So these people that come do not even know their work. They don't know their work. So they are just there as quasi, I mean, ministers, quasi heads of department, quasi heads of agencies. Before you become a flag bearer in NDC or NPP, see, you just look around, see what happens. They will play the tribal card, will play the occupation card, we will I mean, play the religious card. You get that. I had a conversation with an elderly friend of mine, and he told me that once he was in Cape Verde, and the president of Cape Verde, around the time he was there, lived in a like, I mean, a public property house that people, I mean, shared together. Okay, co-tenancy. And he even met him one day in the morning, sitting outside having breakfast. And then he went, and the president woke up and then shook his hand. That is a sign of humility. This is someone who, I mean, is there as a result of his merit, but not as a result of, I mean, who he knows or whatever. You get that? In Ghana, before you even meet, I mean, anyone, any official, government official, you, yeah, you see the hassle you go through before you even shake his or her hand. It's a listen, as if they are gods. So there is a lot of, I mean, mediocrity in the system. When you go to Nigeria, the same thing. The major political parties, APC and PDP, is the same thing that plays. They go through hell. They try to play all these cards to get someone, not based on merit, but based on what they think can pull in the crowds. So if you base on what you think can pull in crowds, and the person is there, he doesn't even know his job. What is he doing? When you go to South Africa, ANC, and then the DA. Same when you go to Zimbabwe, ZANU PF and CCC, it is the same thing. So in fact, Quincy and Tega, and I'm sure Tega will not agree with what I'm saying, but I honestly believe that we need to be recolonized if we don't, I mean, take a look at what we are doing to ourselves as an African populace.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Tega, do you think the recolonization of Africa can solve the continent's current geopolitical and economic problems?
Thank you very much for the opportunity again for us to meet here and talk on very pertinent issues like this one. Frankly speaking, I do not believe that colonization brought anything to humanity. That was good, not even one thing. And I don't think that it should be encouraged in any format, in any way, especially on the continent of Africa. Specifically, I will focus on Africa. How last time, I think I tried to my best to explain that Africa had a kind of vision, a global vision, a world vision. And we were trading already. There was already a kind of trans-African trade activity that were going on. History proves it, that we had some trans-African trade that was already going on. But what colonialism did, slavery did, and all of these imperialistic tendencies, what they did actually was to completely break down or completely destroy that theme of exuberance that was already there for trade. It created a very, very poor foundation of poor atmosphere for trade to go on peacefully. And you see, how do we judge things? We judge things based on their results. That's how we judge things. We judge situations based on results. Somebody can bring up something and say, this is very good, this is very good, this is very good. Okay, we have tested colonialism. What are the results? So Eric Prince, I don't know what he's up to, but like Paul rightly said, I am afraid when I hear words coming out from people like that, when I hear statements, very irresponsible statements coming from people, from the mouths of people like that. And you see, the journalist who was interviewing him could not even correct the guy. The journalist could not tell him about what the evil that colonialism brought to the world. The journalism could not tell him about the ills and the repercussions that we are suffering from, that humanity is suffering from up till today because of colonialism. That journalist could not tell him that there have been leaders in this world, like you rightly said in your introduction, who have apologized for this evil that was done to humanity. French President Emmanuel Macron said very clearly that it was one of the biggest evil that was done against humanity, although his posture has not really changed. Let me tell you something, and I want to, these are all, I always say these are, I always use a disclaimer and say these are some of the things I say are seriously or particularly my own beliefs. They have nothing to do with maybe some specific studies. They are my conviction that this is exactly what it is. Of course, I have gone through some studies as well. I've gone through some statistics as well. Buttress that some of these things that I'm saying are correct, are politically correct, and are also morally correct. Look, you have two types of people, like two categories of human beings. The first, I will term it the good, and the other ones, I will not say evil, but I'll term it the bad. In the good side, you have people who are naively good, people who are consciously good, and people who are good because they are seeing the possibility of also gaining from goodness. Then you have the other side of the coin, the evil people, the side of evil. You have people who are wicked, means they are intentionally wicked. Then you have people who are egocentric, like intrinsically egocentric. And then you have people who are naively evil. We can say we have more people on this side of the aisle, more than we have on the other side of the aisle, the good people, the good side. So there's that tendency all the times where the good will surface, be it in the white race, the yellow race, the black race, the red race, or whatever other race that's there. You will always have those good people who will say, we want progress. We want to see how things can move forward. It's not that those people are completely without any trace of evil in them, but they believe, like I said to you, they are categories. You have a group there of the good people who believe that by doing good, they will also reap good or goodness. That by investing, they will be able to reap. Not that they are doing any charity or any real good thing for anyone, but that the goodness they are doing is actually for themselves. It can still be called self-centered goodness, but it's better to even be self-centeredly good. I want us to look at these characteristics of people before we dive into aspects of colonialism and what it has done against humanity. The reason is that if we don't look at history in this format, we will not realize that you still have very good Western people, just as you have very good Eastern people. Or if we take the global North and the global South, and we want to classify in that format, there are very good people in the global North, and you have very good people in the global South, just as you have evil people or bad people in the global North, and you have bad people in the global South. But the problem is usually the percentage. Once you have a nation that has a percentage of good people, then that nation begins to thrive. But this is the problem. They may be thriving based on their patriotism, which can also be myopic without looking at the global picture, like what we had with slavery. They wanted to build their nations, or slavery and even colonialism. They want to build their nations. You had a group of good people who say, okay, let us make our people great. Let's make our people great. Let's make America great again. But at what cost? They don't care about the cost of what is going to make their people great. So long as you fall in the cadre, that is, you fall in the circle, in the periphery of their people, you can be great. They can push you to greatness. If you don't fall there, they will only push you to ruin. You understand this analysis? I hope you understand this analysis very well. So based on this is how human history has actually evolved. If people who will want to hold a particular position, hold particular beliefs, adhere to those beliefs very strongly, and be looking for how they can integrate or absorb, first of all, they consolidate themselves and their power with the fact that this is what they believe. They consolidate power. And when I talk about power, I'm talking about economic power, military or political power, and all the rest, security and everything. Then once they have this, then they begin to move to see how they can bring people who think like they think. They bring them now into this circle. Then when they bring them, because these people are not part of their tribe, they're not part of their race, so they expect that they will keep these other people who have joined the group in a category that can be called a second-class category. Externally looking, is like they're in one place, one pot soup, in one ideology, one way of thinking, one dream, one vision. But in most cases, it's not. And it has never been. You always have the elect of the elect from the chosen people. You get what I'm saying? That's kind of idea, those kinds of ideology, those kinds of ideologies. You have the elect, but inside the elect, you have the elect from the elect. Then, like that, it goes like that. Then you have finally the main person who becomes like the king, whom everyone concentrates to serve. So this has been the human tendency naturally. We really don't have equality. We can talk about equity. The equality has always been far-fetched from the human dream of the human circle, the human construct when it comes to civilization and all of these things. So at the end of the day, when I look at colonialism, it's part of that kind of ideologies and thoughts that came to the white race specifically and said, okay, we have developed the Christian ideology to be our ideology. We will take this ideology to rule the world, to dominate the world. Anyone who wants to be like us must first of all adhere to these ideologies. The same with the Arabs who embrace Islam. It's the same thing. They followed the same pattern. So they went around the world trying to behave as though they are trying to civilize the world. In their minds, they are trying to civilize the world. But the civilization was done in such an uncivilized manner, so much so that many of their descendants are regretting some of those things that they did in those days. I mean, their ancestors did in those days, which is a very sad thing. That's why we should never ever listen to people who are miseducated about history, about morality, about certain things. When I look at Elvis Prince, I can understand there can only be warmongering. He can only have a warmongering spirit. The father was maybe part of such had such foundations of military stuff and companies that sponsored wars and all the rest. He picked up from there and he's doing the same thing. It's just normal for him. You know, he does not see, if you look at his background and history, you realize that maybe his parents were great-great-great-grandparents were slave owners and all of that. So for him, it is not a problem. He's seeing it as part of life. On the part of the Africans who have predators, who are ready to colonize them, who are ready to take them to slavery, who are ready to maltreat them. That's where my problem is. I can never talk about all of these ills without looking at how we, the Africans, are supposed to take responsibilities to mitigate these kinds of tendencies. It is how much we take responsibility to mitigate such tendencies that avoid an evil person, and that can even help an evil person to live evil and grow his own spirit. Why? When an evil person knows that where I'm going, if I want to attack, there will be casualties, he'll think twice. There are two things. He can decide to come and be with you and collaborate with you so that you people can grow together, or take the risk, the huge risk to attack you, to want to take what you've got. But the first option will be probably what he will do. The first option will be probably what he's going to choose, to try to meet you, and you guys go on the table to sign deals and work together and grow together, rather than trying to attack and destroy you so that he can be able to reap or pillage your resources, like we have had all this while. So we have seen the trend of colonialism. We should never repeat that. And I'm not talking about the West, because the West actually have very little moral. They have very little morals, very little ethics. They have very little spiritual or whatever good foundation to want to lecture anyone about anything that has to do with colonialism again, or whatsoever, or morality of good or good governance. Look, African states take money and look at the money Abacha embezzled in foreign countries, like in Swiss bank. So if you calculate Abacha's money together, it's about $6 billion. $6 billion. These guys are keeping in these foreign banks. How do you keep money in the foreign banks, and then the people who say they have high moral rectitude do not tell these guys, say, no, this is not your money. This is the money of the nation. So take it back and invest it in your nation, because they're enjoying from the booty. When they say, Switzerland is a nation of that and a nation of this, good. What goodness is that? I was saying that you are a person in the jurisprudential arena or sector, and as a lawyer, how do you define thievery? Can there be someone who is corrupt without someone who is not corrupted? Can there be a thief without where he stole or who is getting the booty? So when the African leaders are talking, or where the West, like Elvis Prince is talking about Africans or nations that don't know how to govern themselves, they are very corrupt. And what he fails to understand is that most of the time, these African leaders and other leaders from the global south, they bring their investment to come and put in their banks. That is what they do. And they will see clearly that these investments are ill-gotten investments, but they won't do anything about it. They'll keep those monies and they will use those monies to develop their own countries. So this is what, look at the money that Mobutu kept in these foreign banks. Look at the money that Abacha kept in these Swiss bank and even in America. Because if you look at his assets and everything, it's about $6 billion. This is a lot of money that can help the Nigerian community or the nation. But yet, even to retrieve that money it has not been easy. They've not been able to retrieve it all. For the Congolese government, it is like lost money. It's like lost money. They have not retrieved up to $5 million. I'm not talking about billion. They've not retrieved up to $5 million from the Congolese money. So Elvis should know that there is a huge foundation that enables these corrupt tendencies and the problems that is taking place in Africa and most of the global south, and that he is part of the problem. He's actually part of the problem. A typical example is what? Elvis and his Blackwater company, because he's a military contractor, Elvis and his Blackwater company went to Iraq. They were one of the persons who were contracted to go and fight in the Iraq war. When George Bush Jr. Decided that they were going to invade Iraq and dethrone Gaddafi. No, sorry, Saddam Hussein, and dethrone Saddam Hussein. You know, he was one of the first, and the casualties, the rough war tactics that he employed. He was even accused of killing a mother and his kid. I mean, these are some of the things that he has done. I mean, his group has caused a lot of havoc around and mayhem around the globe. And so he is saying something which I am now trying to connect it with what Benjamin Netanyahu said last week, that when he finishes liberating Israel, he will come to liberate Africa. I don't know whether you are reading any meaning behind that. There's a lot of meaning. It correlates very well, very, very well with Elvis's ideas, so I can begin to connect the dots. I may be, overthinking, but there is some link here. There's a connection between politicians and weapon manufacturers and military contractors. A perfect blend that gives a perfect triangle of the top person up there, who is the one who does the manufacturing, who controls nearly everything that comes down the pyramid, where they practically rule nations. They decide which nations are going to go to war and which nations are going to be at peace. It's not for nothing. Look, check it. The Black African countries, typical Black African, sub-Saharan African countries, the biggest in population are what? The biggest in population are what? Nigeria and DRC Congo. Have you ever seen any stability in those nations? It's designed to be that way. It's a colonial design. They have never, ever. In fact, if you want to see poverty, if you want to see misery, if you want to see real ghettos, you want to see the legacy of colonialism. These ghettos we have now and all those terrible cities and suburbs we have in the towns, they were never there during the period that we had our own civilization, during the African civilization, during the times we were trading among each other. You see, there is this website that tries to, or some group of people who try to list the pros and cons of colonialism, and one of the pros are that it improved health system. It did not improve any health system. Our medical infrastructures that we had, the way we treated ourselves, were we could say it was 10 times better off than what we have now, taking synthetic medicines into our system, killing ourselves, our body cells in ways that are not supposed to happen in that format, destroying our health in one way or the other, only creating more problems. Never really treating ourselves adequately, creating only foundations for more diseases so that more medicines could be bought. Those tricks are there, and they're all commercial politics, which are very interesting. We cannot say that it improved our healthcare in any way, because if you look at the mortality rate in those days and now, the mortality rate of today is greater than during the period we were doing our own trans-African trading and trans-African economic activities. They say they improve infrastructure. So we want to believe that when people have story buildings, we have long skyscrapers, that is good infrastructure. That's what we want to believe. That our beautiful herds that we lived in, that gave us longer lives, these are not good things at all. These are not good infrastructure. This healthy lifestyle, this organic lifestyle, which some of them are yearning to come and have a taste of, this Garden of Eden lifestyle, which some of them are yearning to have a taste of, it is not good. So their infrastructures are better off than our own infrastructure. And let me tell you, we would have had better infrastructures that are that could be infrastructures that are locally thought about. I mean, with a nationalistic picture, with a nationalistic spirit, or an African spirit behind it. Even if we wanted to create roads, construct, even if we wanted to construct tar roads, even if we wanted to construct all sorts of pipe-borne water, if we wanted to construct electricity or power grids, we would have taken into consideration some national cultural backgrounds, would have taken into consideration some certain aspects, some social aspects of our own setup, and maybe would have had something better. They say improve education. Which education did he improve? Education that you finish school and you don't know what you do with the school. One day I asked my cousin who was in the university, what do you want to do after school? He said, I don't know. Yeah, why? How can she know? She does not know what she wants to do after university. She doesn't have any idea. That's the kind of education they gave to us. What kind of curricula do we have? So so what is it when they say these are the pros and the cons? It is all about the cons. It's all about the cons. There are no pros. There are no pros at all. That they improve economic development. Which economic development? Which economic development that kept us in economic shackles? Rather, debts and all sorts of problems, financial problems. That's what we have. Look at the economy of Nigeria. That is dropping with inflation, or having inflation of about, the currency is having an inflation of about 40%. I mean, what is it that we have gained from this colonialism? When they talk about colonialism, they're trying to classify the pros and the cons. There is no pros. There are no pros. There are only cons. Economic development, restoration of women's rights is among the pros of the colonialism. They try to say restoration of women's rights. What they don't realize is that we really used to respect our wives. A part of the fact that we had some excesses. Of course, every civilization had its own excesses. Every people had their own excesses. I don't want to believe that the West didn't have excesses on the way they looked at women, that maltreated women. Every civilization had, and what is obvious is that we would have also caught up with time to bring about human rights and all of that, because we had very good ways of trading, and that would have propelled. All we needed were good leaders, and of course we're also traveling. We're traveling to see how other people were leading themselves. In fact, they came to us and they saw what we were doing, and they went and modified it. They employed it and used it for their good. So our problem is not there. Our problem was that our real problem has been that Africans came to this level where they could not unite. They could not come together to do one thing at a time. So they let the enemy infiltrate them. There's an African proverb that says that brothers are strong together. The unity of brothers is stronger when both are richer, or both are rich. So we didn't let the wealth of each other help us. We rather became rivalries based on what? Based on the colonial doctrines, which I gave last time. How we can put ourselves aside, how we can live apart, and how we can quarrel over religions, quarrel over ideologies. They brought two ideologies in the world: communism and democracy, and they say you must choose one. The person who is in this one is the right one, who is with us. The person who is with the left side is not with us, and so this one is the evil one. So we, among ourselves, we now begin to fight. Oh, I'm going to go to the left. This one, I'm going to go to the right. Then we begin to fight each other. So when you talked about Russia coming in now again for colonialism, Russia is not coming to colonize us. Russia fought against colonial tendencies based on their Soviet Union empire in those days. They fought against colonial tendencies. They were friends of the nations that were colonized. They could have been doing this with their own parochial interest or any other interest, but they were doing that. Chinese were doing that. They were fighting against colonialism while they were there. So Africans had already had good ties with some of those nations like Russia, like Turkey, like China. Maybe they had this posture. Maybe these foreign nations had this posture because they thought that by doing this, they will be able to create a better foundation to maybe colonize us later. I don't know. I don't know whether that's what they have. But the relationship that exists between these nations and Russia and all of these other nations present in China, they are not relationships which are based on colonialism. No. They are treaties that are signed. They are not like treaties that were signed in those days. In those days, there were not even real treaties signed. You were imposed a treaty that you must sign it and it has to be this way. After colonialism, there was the pact for the continuation of colonialism, which France came and signed with the French leaders. The pact, they could not have even get a better name for it. The pact for the continuation of colonialism, you know? So which says that we are although colonialism has been stopped at the global level, we are not stopping it. So you better put that in your mind. And let me give you a very interesting scenario. The French before 1960, even around 1948, the French colonies decided that, we have to create our federation to be as one nation. One nation. I mean, African French colonies. Modibo Keita, Sekou Touré, and many other guys, they came together, even Houphouët-Boigny of Cote d'Ivoire. In fact, Houphouët-Boigny was one of the head of that movement. They were trying to create one African French state. As time went on, they said that it was going to be impossible. Of course, the French would not even permit them to do that. They had not had independence by now. They had not yet had independence, but they were already thinking that way. So they went in for a conference around 1948. They went in for a conference in which they were supposed now to conclude with that. The conference was in France. They set up a very good system, but the French said, no, it has to be two states, two federated states. You have the Equatorial state, and then you have the West African state. The West African state was supposed to be guided by so they used to call the West African Federated State of French countries, if I translate that very well, and they put Togo on top of it. Then you have the Equatorial Equatorial French African State, the federal state, which had Cameroon on it. In other words, maybe these were the nations that were supposed to be, or the centers where they were supposed to have what we call their capitals. These were the places where the capitals were supposed to be. So now they made these two federated French states. These two federated French states, that's the foundation from which even their monies are coming from. Do you know that you have two CFAs? Did you know that? You have two French CFAs. So they had decided that there were going to be two nations, two federated nations. And they were going to collaborate to work together in such a way that it will enable them to trade among each other. Then they gave France a very special place in their constitution, or in their legal documents. They said if France removes the posture of colonialism and superiority, France can become a very good friend who can be a partner for life. Something like that. Just think about the benefits that France would have benefited if France permitted this to take place. It was going towards its realization. Then a certain leader came forth, De Gaulle. Listen to this. De Gaulle fought the Americans so that they could be free, because the American bases the military bases were in France after the Second World War. You know that it was America who saved the European nations in 1948 with the plan they call the Marshall Plan. The Marshall Plan enabled some of these European nations you see to be restored to a certain level. Without the Marshall Plan, these nations would be third world countries. So the Marshall Plan during Truman's era enabled these nations to kick off very well. The biggest beneficiary of the Marshall Plan, I think, was Britain, then followed by France, and then followed by Germany. And all those nations, they really had wonderful time using the money of America to grow.
Tega, may I chip in a bit about the Marshall Plan you just mentioned?
Oh, come in.
Okay, so you rightfully said America helped salvage some of these European countries. that is a similar thing we are asking for as Africa, because we can see that as a stance we are on crossroads. We need help from some of these superpowers. Don't you think so?
Yes, we do. We do need help. We really
Yes,
do need help.
and you see, and now you see, you also rightfully gave, I mean, some merits and demerits of colonization that
No,
you had come
colonization has
across.
no merit.
Tega, Tega, no one can downplay the significance of colonization
It has
and,
no, no,
the history
not
of the
not
world.
even one merit. You know
So
why?
let me give
See,
you one
Okay,
merit.
so
see
So
that,
let
sorry, I
me
want to
see
let you speak
that.
and hear where you're coming from.
So let me give you one merit.
Mhm.
For instance, as we are even seated on, I mean, on this platform having a convo, is as a result of colonization, because we were, I mean, given a language, an official language that was transcripted. Yes,
Who makes you
we as
believe?
Africans,
What makes
we
you
as
believe?
Africans,
What makes you
yes.
believe that we could not also have decided to have, say, the Swahili language or the Swahili language or any African language or something that we would have selected to be our language? We were already trading together. How are we trading? We
We were doing this orally. So, and even history and all those things we still have that are preserved, we were always handed over orally from generation to generation.
Yeah.
So if we were fortunate enough to have an advanced technology that had come, that had invented, yes, we would have gotten to, for instance, if education hadn't come, if writing and reading hadn't come, we would have gotten there to a stage someday somewhere. Maybe around this time Africa
Where
would
did
have now
writing
also
start? Where did writing
started.
start? Where did we start writing? Writing started
You
where?
know, so the history of writing is another thing. If we are going to delve into it, we'll spend the
Okay, so but
entire
let
program
me
with
just
you.
summarize it
But
to let me please summarize
yes,
it to you so that I can land. Then you come in.
okay.
Writing itself and most of the civilization. Let me tell you that Africans were already having opportunities and advanced technologies where they could even read astrological bodies. Did you get the point? They could dive into astrological readings. They could understand astrology, and I want to believe that they even had opportunities to go out of this of the earth. We
Yes,
had
they
this
could do
technology.
that, but
If
documentation was the problem. How could they
documentation,
document it?
our history, some of our history is documented. We have some of the scriptures which today, in one way or the other, were either modified or taken and made to compile to bring the world scriptures that you are having today. What you don't know is that we have histories that were seized from us and they're in museums. We had writings. So it is not Europeans that comes to tell us about writings. No, we discovered writings. We have our history that is written. The problem is that when they came with their colonial agenda, it was first of all to make us feel as though we discovered nothing. Whether it is electricity, whether it is cars, whether it is aeroplane, whether it's the internet that you are using today, there's been a black man behind it. That's a different story altogether. We're going to look at it in the future. But what I want us to look at is
Are you seriously saying that everything that we have right now, there's a black man behind it?
yes, yeah. Every scientific discovery that we have today, there have been a black person behind, or a trace from Africa or from the northern part of Africa.
How are you sure of that? How are you sure of that?
There's history.
No,
There's history. And
let's even
let me tell you something. The Europeans themselves are beginning to come up with some of those documents. You need to do a lot of research on that. The Europeans themselves are beginning to come with some of those documents. I asked you last time, some of the artifacts that you have seen, could they have been made just by somebody making tumbu tumbu? In a place, tumbu tumbu means you're doing a guesswork. No,
So Tega, you see,
Yeah.
the artifacts. You see, the artifacts is one thing.
Yes.
You know, even when it comes to the history, like trying to keep documentation and all those stuff. Even in the Stone Age, people tried to, I mean, put in, I mean, carve drawings in caves and all those stuff for the sake of documentation. Now, the reason why Africa we would not have been able to, I mean, survive I mean, a transcribed reading and writing mode is that Africa is a polyglot continent. Ghana, for instance, look at the number of languages that are spoken, over 47. Nigeria, how many languages? Cameroon, how many languages?
Okay.
So,
Today we are speaking what English, right? We are speaking
yes,
English, right?
English,
That's what we are
English
speaking.
is yes.
What if they came a king in Africa, or what through the trans-Saharan or through the trans-African trade, there came some level of unity among the people that said that from now onward we're going to have this language, and from now onward this is how we're going to do it. It would have transformed the Africa, because what the colonialism and slavery did, they stopped our own activities. So we could not evolve, we could not progress. But do not think that we would never have reached here. Do not think that we would never have gone to space and put satellites there. Do not think that we'll never have come to one level of speaking one language when we had many states. We could have come there as well.
Tega, we could have come there, but that is based on an assumption. We could have come there. We could have performed worse. Now again, now let me chip in. Let me chip in. Let me chip in. You let's even.
I think I
Yes,
support Tega on this because of the separation of our languages. That's why we are not a team.
Yes.
You know, and I will say that this person is from my country or from my region, so I would help that one instead of helping a fan. Even if the central region person, the person has a good qualification.
So all that was required, I think she's frozen. All that was required was good leadership. If we had a leader, let's say that we had a king like Mansa, who popped up.
Yeah, Mansa can come, Musa.
Yes, Musa. If that guy came up and was like how he went to Egypt and he was trying to create some kind of diplomacy in Egypt and the rest, if they gave him that opportunity to have a greater authority on the continent, if we had that kind of tendencies, which would have come, because we had heroes we already had heroes that had already shown example that they can do that. Like this man.
Yes, Tega.
Let me land. So if we had that kind of heroes, then the next generation of heroes may want to continue with that kind of a tendency, and we could have come together to unite. You could have, because you see, leadership is what brings about unity. Is when you set up the leadership well. Let's say that two leaders from two countries, like what these three countries have done now, the Sahel countries, they have done now. This is a typical example. The Sahel region or this Sahel states, this Sahel alliance is a typical example of what would have happened to us if we were let free. They are doing this when we are not even let free. Look at the assaults that they are already having now. Look at the attacks.
So may I chip
if they were left free, if Africans was left free, just imagine what would have done together. So go away.
Okay, so yeah, thank you. So I want to reiterate the fact that you said if Africans were left free, they could have been. So it could have been good. It could have been worse. Now, I want us to take one detail, and this detail is coming from a point you raised, talking about the demerits of colonization, and then you spoke about religion. You see, Tega, this is what I want yourself, Quincy, and all Africans watching this show to reason, to think of. See how cruel the world is, even with the influx of religion, with the ideology of religion. What if there wasn't religion at all? What if religion were not to be present? That concept, what would have happened? So religion came I mean, various ways as it came Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, and all those stuff. I mean, with all these principles that do not do bad, do not take someone's wife, do not take another's life, do not do this and do not do that. And you rightfully said in your earlier submission that religion, Christianity and Islam to be precise, were all brought as a result of colonization. And you would agree with me that religion is playing a very vital role in Africa.
Okay, Paul, I would like to say something about this. I mean, before the colonization, do you think our ancestors were doing all killing each other and doing all sorts of things to each other? No.
Certainly, because even in the
Okay, coming.
yes, I mean, there's this documentary I will get for us. It was a satellite that they launched in space some years back, and it was just the documentary sought to compare the lives of Europeans and Africans. It's not the best documentary to watch if you are someone who doesn't have the heart, or I mean, it's a documentary that has to do with a lot of viewer discretion. But you would see that these satellite cameras were just, I mean, capturing what the people were doing unbeknown to those people. And you would see these barbaric, I mean, incidents. Okay. I watched the documentary, I mean, more than thrice. I'll get it for you. You would see how I mean, cruel we were to each other. And even aside that there are accounts, biblical accounts and other things, that there was already killings and all those stuff, even in the
So you
Cain and
mean
Abel.
at
So,
that time there were satellites that were videoing things?
no, so
I mean, at
yeah,
that
so
time.
what? Okay, yes, that's a very good question you asked. That the said documentary is not about that time, but the said documentary is about I think 50 years ago. So what I'm trying to now say is, even if in 50 years ago these acts were captured on camera, how about 100 years ago that even by then, or 200 or 300 years ago that people were not, I mean, risen to a particular level? Again, Tega made mention of health systems, and then, I mean, lifestyles, buildings, and all those stuff that he feels we are worse off than. You know, these things are all dynamic. Humans as we are also evolving, we are dynamic. There's no way, I mean, even what we are eating right now that we claim to, we say is organic, it will come a time they'll say there will be other things said about it and we'll need to change. That is how life is. The human race, we don't even know what we want. So health, I mean, yes, we started, we had our organic way of medication. Maybe by then they also thought it was a good, I mean, a good thing to be brought. And now they are beginning to redefine. They are also going organic, aren't they?
I,
I mean, those
I'm surprised you're talking about barbarism as though Africans have inflicted barbarism
Okay.
on any
In
other
history,
humans like you have the Europeans and the Americans. We have never fought.
but we inflicted on our own selves,
Yes,
which is the worst form
just
of
like
barbarism.
just like the
remember my
Europeans inflicted on themselves. We never created world wars. The greatest of barbarism, apex of barbarism in the world has been the world wars, where people will kill themselves and throw bombs on themselves and destroy each other. Like when I was trying to tell you about De Gaulle, the reason why the Marshall, in fact, we
and this
left
all
that we left.
happened during the colonialism. Before you can even open your door and keep it there. No one will come and steal you. Nothing like that. We're going on.
We actually look.
You
All
you-
this
you-
started.
We have
Actually-
said we have said something. I'm sorry. We are really arguing too much. We have said something already about. That's why I laid the premise of the debate by saying that you have good people and you have evil people in every community, in every race, and even in every family. You have those kinds of situations, and it is when the good people become more that they can be able to change to team up and then transform the society, and then they can now be able to pull the evil people into what they have been able to do. And this is what you call now some kind of assimilation. You're assimilating the evil into the good. And it has always been a heavily strategy. I look at it as a heavily strategy because when I try to analyze the history of religion, I see that very tendency. There is no religion that does not really have blood, in its foundation. So there's always that tendency. But if you talk about barbarism, it is not the African people. No, we are far from being barbaric. The real barbaric people have been the Caucasians who have fought against each other. I mean, look at they also had huge tribes with like the ones that we used to call the Vandals, the Lombards or the Lombards. You had the Saxons, you had the Franks. Do you know the wars these guys fought? The Huns, the Goths, the Mongols. You know the kinds of wars this guy fought. You have no idea. We have not seen wars.
Tega, there's a saying that when the hunter went to the forest and the lion tried to attack and he killed the lion, he said what? The lion was a beast and a savage. You get that?
Yes.
But when the lion killed the hunter, the lion the lion wanted to also feed his family.
Right.
So it depends on you get that. It depends on the side of the coin you are. So talking of barbarism and then talking of those who were, heavily barbaric. It's just like when even in a war, when two countries are fighting against each other, when someone shoots someone from your side, what do you say? You say filthy bastard. And if you rather shoot, it's all death. If you rather shoot an enemy, then you say, yes, I got a target. You are happy over it. It's all killing in any way, isn't it? So we have to be mindful because yes, every coin has two sides, and we have to be. Barbarism is barbarism, acts of killing. There was thievery, there was killings, there was adultery.
I understand, but there has which one has left an indelible mark in the minds and in the lives of people and history? It's a white barbarism. Did we go and colonize the white people? Did we colonize the Chinese people? Did we enslave them? Did we fight world wars? Did we go and provoke world wars and bombarded Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Savagely.
I don't think we had the technologies, we would have done that.
But we have not done that.
It's caught in the crossfire.
So, Tega, do you think Eric Prince is suffering from a particular mental disorder that makes him not empathetic with the suffering that colonialism inflicted on humankind, Africa in particular?
It's very possible that those who have gone, or those who are placed in positions where they kill people, they live their lives basically killing people, destroying cities. It's very difficult for those people to have a normal psyche. It's very, very difficult for me. I think it's very difficult because life is not the human being is not only a physical human being. You also have the spiritual side of it. Sometimes you have some of those spiritual manifestations that can manifest one way or the other. Somebody can be speaking, somebody can really be out of empathy. Out of topic, completely, because I don't even know why Elvis will want to suggest or insinuate those kinds of things at this point in time when history or humanity is going through some real difficulties. For him to speak like that, except you have an agenda, except he has an agenda. If he doesn't have an agenda, then I would suggest that they should check him. The government should take some responsibility to check him. He may not be very normal. So I think that it could be a possibility that he's not very it's not very normal. My brother is laughing.
Yes.
Actually, to be honest with you, do you really think that the idea that he brought, he was just bringing up or voicing out what he thinks or his idea? Do you really think it's a very bad idea that can make people think that he's suffering from a mental problem?
You need to know what colonialism did on humanity. It has been one of the worst evils. Let me see. Slavery came to an end, and it was classified as the worst evil. But in a way, that worst evil continued. How did it continue? Especially in Africa. You have this Leopold II, who was a king in Belgium, who decided in the around 1880, 1888 or so, 1884, 1883, who was thinking that a nation, a place, a location in Africa is his private property, and started feeling that there's so much wealth in this place, I wouldn't want to share with anybody. You see what greed can do. So greed, so much greed. I don't want to share this with anybody. So you could have powers coming, because already now you have a new kid on the block. That is America, who was already a powerful state at that time. They were seeing that a new kid has come on the block. It's better we come to some kind of consensus at the international level, so that I can protect this my area that I've taken. Nobody should come to this place. Actually, the whole Berlin conference was provoked by this fear of this king. He was a very influential king at that time. So he contacted the chancellor of Germany, Otto von Bismarck, at that time. And based on Otto von Bismarck, they could create this Berlin conference, or they could organize this conference that went for sharing and partitioning Africa without the knowledge of the Africans themselves, and with no African on the table. This is how, at the end of the day, they partitioned us, and he took this chunk of land and decided that this was his private thing. Of course, he had already said it was his private property, and this is what propelled the whole aspect of partitioning of the states. And they didn't only end. It means that the same tactics they employed during slavery, they just employed the same thing back now into the African states. And how are they doing it? In the slavery period, they used to take some black guys and train these black guys to take care of the rest of the black guys. You used to have some black guys who are very muscular, very great. These are the ones they used to use to fertilize the other women. You could have your wife, but they would not permit you to fertilize your wife. You have a macho guy there who must be the one to do the fertility, so that the children who are born are huge black guys who have muscles. Who could even be, some of them could even be castrated so that they can walk very well. So these strategies they employed in those days there, they wanted to come and employ the same thing this time around, because they have already signed, because they believe in documents. They have already signed that there's not going to be any slave trade anymore. And some people were taking measures to make sure that slave trade does not continue. And this was based on some of the religious sentiments or religious backgrounds, or religious people were saying, no, it is evil and all of that. So finally they ended slave trade, but they started it again. They started slavery in a different format, this time around in the lands of the very people whom they had already enslaved. So they came in Africa and established this foundation. Now, every time that they are there's any progress that they want to make, like they want to lift slavery, they want to uplift the people's, let's say, justice, they want to bring in freedoms, and it's not freedoms of the masses. It is freedom of the ones who have been elected to rule the masses. It is more advantage of, when they say, for example, they say that there's poverty and we need to give loans so that the nations can progress. It's not for the progress of the masses, the 90%. They set up a 1% that seem to be like the rulers, the ones who rule. 5% of those ones who understand that they are being ruled, who understand the dynamics, who are being used by the 1% to now go and use the 94% that is remaining. So 94% of people remain in some kind of a poverty, remain in some kind of misery, while you have these elites who have been, or elites who have been trained to always be in a high position, a very good position, and they will go to their graves. They will give their lives to protect their positions, to protect the colonizer. And this has been what was employed during that period. And it is what is employed even now in the neo-colonial era. So colonialism
Okay.
has never even ended in the first place. So when we're talking about ending, should we still have colonialism and it has never ended, and you can see the evil that it has perpetrated. So bringing it again in a formal way where you think the governments of the world should still accept that there should be colonialism. Elvis knows very well that this is impossible. But what Elvis did was what we call that expression, that exhibition of the condescending spirit of racism that lives in his spirit of his, because it was what his white ancestors practiced. So it is that condescending spirit that is speaking in his mouth. That is what is coming out of his mouth. It is that spirit of racism that is coming out of his mouth. And his white journalist was sitting also there and could not correct the guy over what he was, the foolishness that he was spewing out of his mouth. So this is the problem. That's actually the point. It is a condescending spirit, where they think the black man is an ape, when they think the black man has a and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying all of the white people are thinking like that. That's not what I'm saying. They are very good white people. They are very good people in the West. Like I've led the premise already of my debate. I'm saying that you have good people in the North, in the global North, and you have good people in the global South, just like you have the bad on both sides as well. But this aspect of this guy spewing this nonsense, that he has not yet seen, he has not yet believed that the black man or the other people who are not of their civilization can do better. What he does not realize is that they are the ones. They are the very ones. His people are the very ones. Either he is just being disingenuous to accept this reality, or he is terribly naive. That's why when you talk, in your introduction, you talk about miseducation. He's either miseducated, and that's why maybe he could go into wars, fighting passionately, thinking he's doing good for his nation, because he has been kept in terrible ignorance. So he needs to know. He needs to know how his nation participates, how it contributes to the wars that are taking place on the continent of Africa specifically.
Okay.
If he has an idea, then maybe he will speak differently. If he does not, if he knows and he's spewing this nonsense, he means he's just being racist and he's being disingenuous.
Okay, thank you very much, Tega. And okay, so Tega, what do you assess to be the social, cultural, political, and economic impact of colonialism on Africa?
Well, when I started, I think I was talking about some people who are trying to talk about the pros and the cons of colonialism, and they behaving as though we have had anything good that colonialism brought to us. And I beg to differ. We don't have anything. We don't even have one good thing that colonialism gave us. We have nothing good that colonialism gave us. Colonialism was barbaric. It distorted every part of our civilization. It perturbed our trade that we want. That's our economic activities that we were already connecting with each other. You can imagine it just distorted everything. It distorted our worldview that we were trying to have, we were trying to assert. It distorted that. It distorted our self-esteem as Africans, because we had to handle we had to embrace new cultures, new forms of belief systems. And you know what belief systems can do, because you must have a cultural identity. It's not enough for Africans to say we want to unite. No, it's not going to happen. Even if it happens, it will not last, because we do not have one cultural identity. We need a cultural identity that we can identify as Africans, and then based on that we can have a vision, and based on that vision we can be heading towards some level of substantial development. Without that, it will not be very easy for us. And it is those kinds of visions that have been put together by people in the East, like the Chinese and people like Malaysia, Singapore. These nations, they put in place these kinds of systems and had these wonderful visions that they could move forward. But what colonialism has done for us is that it kept a chunk of people, maybe the minority, in their various traditions, which were a little bit also divided and not very consolidated as one or united. Then it exploited that division very well to separate us more. Then it brought again some new religions and new cultural spheres, or their own cultural spheres, to create a new atmosphere of religions and cultures. And then now we have the elites, the new elites that popped up after that. It's the elite that is completely disconnected with its own roots, with its own culture, with its own spirituality. Take a white doll, put it in front of a black child, he will embrace it more than we embrace a black doll. So there was a lot of psychological, lot of spiritual, lot of mental, lot of intellectual, lot of physical disorientation that have taken place for a long time, and it will require a lot of work to be done. And one of the things that I think will help us to move forward, I don't want to believe that is a merit of colonialism. It's not colonialism that brought about internet. No. Some people will say technologies. No, we had our technologies. We could improve on those technologies. Or we don't want to believe that we could improve on our technologies. We don't want to believe that we could come to some level. If we were already having some kind of a global agenda, or some of our leaders were having global agenda, why don't we think that some of those leaders could come together in a more civilized way? We could come in a more civilized way to say, okay, let us do like this. Let's work like this, not dictatorially, not imposing your own beliefs on others, but that we could form a new language. A typical example is what we have seen with some of our leaders, with like Kwame Nkrumah. He didn't force anybody to believe what he said. He said that if we leave this conference, that was in 1930, in 1963, in Addis Ababa. He said, if we leave this conference, my brothers and sisters, my fellow colleagues, if we leave this conference hall without achieving this goal of united Africa, without putting up structures, without even signing some papers for this to manifest, we will regret all of our lives, and we may leave this regret behind. And it's exactly what has happened. It's exactly what has happened. So we could have, and what I want to say is that he didn't use force to bring it to pass, like how the West came and imposed their own on us. So maybe he could have been using this diplomacy consistently, could have been consistent in his way if he was not also dethroned. Maybe he could have been consistent in talking about this until one day he will find some few. Of course, he found a few guys. Even he tried the Mali and the Guinea Federation together, tried to bring something together. It was not easy, but it wasn't going to be easy. It's like what we have now with the Sahel states. These three Sahel states that have come together, these alliances that have come together, it's not going to be easy. But if they had some freedom and they could be let to come together, they will build something that could be concrete, that can move forward. And that's why asking these states to go into the normal democracy that we know now at this point in time, it's the worst thing we can even do, we can even think about. For us to dive into democracy now, when we have not consolidated the structures that can sustain that democracy. Because democracy is what I said, is monetized evil democracy. That's what we've got all this while. All these evils that we've had around Africa, they've taken place under the guise of democracy. So we should learn our lesson. That democracy has not brought us anything good. It is part of the colonial legacy. It has not brought us anything good. We have to revisit it. We have to reinvigorate it. We have to look into it very well and set up better structures for that democracy to work if it has to still be that kind of a democracy. So I think that colonialism brought nothing good to us. In fact, when we had this Ivory Coast 2024 African Nations Cup, and they were singing their various anthems. When the Arab states stand and they're singing their anthems, they're singing in their language. And when this meant colonized people, Black Africans, when we come, the Sub-Saharans, when we come, we're singing in a French language, we're singing in an English language. At a particular time, I felt like bleeding. I felt like my whole stomach is filled with butterflies. You know, we're singing in a language that has nothing to do with us. That is what we identified ourselves with, and that's what sometimes we even fight about. Talking about, oh, je suis francophone, oh, I'm English speaking, and if you look at the English nations, we are better off. Oh, such a pity, such a pity. We're singing in a different man's language. That is our own anthem. That is our own identity. So for the many years these organizations came together, the real leaders that would have led these nations to move forward. In the book that I said I was writing in 2014, I was saying that Nelson Mandela was very, very critical for the African unity. Although very little was done, I also understand that it wasn't easy for him. It was just as controverted and put into problems and positions, just like Mandela, just like Gaddafi as well. So it wasn't easy for him. But I was expecting that there could even be some symbolic things that he could do, even as he was creeping to his grave. You know, that's what I was really expecting. So when he died, I was like bleeding. I was like bleeding. It was like, oh, what is that substantial African thing that we can hold on and say, okay, this is the borders were not open for each one, but at least there was some symbolic sign that was done in a ceremony that he wiped all the borders. He took the African map and had an African map, borderless African map, in a ceremony, even ceremoniously. I was expecting that. I was expecting that he could gather some few linguistics. We cannot unite with our language now, but he could gather some few linguistics from various universities and say, okay, initiate something. And be like you know what icons can do? You know what icons, what they are I just wanted one act. I was just waiting for one act. As somebody I respected a lot and I still respect him, but I wanted one act that he could do that could connect him adequately to the Pan-African story. That's what I was looking for. South Africa, he liberated South Africa of 50 million people. That's not enough. When I say that's not enough, I mean that his legacy was too much, was too big for only 50 million people. 50 million people, only for 50 million people to benefit from such a huge monument. So I was really anticipating that they could even come, he could even talk about language, he could even talk about, he could just talk about those things. The most important part, the most important thing he talked about was our resources, and the dream that he was just having this dream that we are going to unite one day. But I think that he was the right person to trigger the movement. And even if he had to die for that, he was the right person to trigger that movement for our unity. So colonialism actually made our heroes sometimes very mute. I'm talking about colonialism because it's still there. So when I'm talking about our heroes, it made our heroes terribly mute. It means intellectually, socially, culturally, intellectually, and otherwise, it created such a very bad foundation and atmosphere, evil or a negative atmosphere, created so much fear that our leaders can't even really express what is in their minds. And even up to now, if not of the social media, can we really express our minds? We can't. We can't express our minds, So these are the things colonialism brought to the continent. There is no one. I've tried to see one good thing that colonialism brought. When they talk about the pros and the cons, there are no pros, not even one. If you hear of one pro of colonialism, is a naive person who is giving you such analysis. There is no pro. It's just like we say that, okay, Uh, in the wars of the world wars and the what Hitler became in the world created the foundation to weaken the European nations, and the African could benefit from that to get out of colonialism, formal colonialism. Somehow you can talk about that kind of a prose. You can talk about that kind of a pro, but you cannot situate one pro that you can talk about in Africa when it comes to colonialism. You can't. Because everything that we had was dismantled to implant something new that was Western, but that was more negative than what we already had. Whether it is the medicine, whether it is the school curriculum, whether it is the human rights, whether it is morality, whether it is ethics, whether it is social cohesion, whether it is political cohesion. So if all of these foundations of humanity, of this is what holds humanity, if there's not even one that colonialism brought to be good, what we're talking about language because we're speaking English, you mean that we could not speak any other language? I mean, we could have a leader who could come up and say we unite our languages, and because all it takes is leadership. That's all. If you have a charismatic leader who understands those dynamics, he can go to his friend and say, and teach his friend and say, look, we are better be united, because if we don't get united, this is what's going to happen to us. This may happen to us. And then convince, just like Kwame Nkrumah was trying to convince them. And if he did, then that would be a force to reckon with. And based on that force, we could be able to move forward with our languages. We could have one language which we could be speaking now. We could decide and say we will take a Swahili language to use it as our official language. We could decide and say we use the Lingala language. The Swahili language is East Africa. I think part of part of Central Africa also has it. Congo DRC speaks also some Swahili, but Congo DRC has a dominant language that which is called the Lingala language. You have the Yoruba ethnic group that is popular, very very huge. Then Brazil, you have a huge number of Yorubas around the globe, including places like Brazil and other places in Latin America, and a huge diaspora as well in America. So we could adopt the Yoruba language. The Yoruba language is connected to the Ga language here in Ghana. It's connected to the Ewe language in Ghana. So you also have the Ewe, for example. The Ewe is a very huge ethnic group in the world. So we cannot. I've tried to critically look at the pros of colonialism. I've not found one.
Okay.
Everything that the colonialism did on us was just evil.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. We understand. Okay, thank you very much, Tega. So, Paul, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm loud and clear. Yes, I wanted to touch on something interesting Tega said when you were asking him about probably Eric Prince's cognitive ability. And Tega's statement sought to suggest as though he may not have his mental faculties completely together. Uh, well, I think if those are Tega's sentiments, it might also mean that it cuts across us as well. We those who also share similar. I mean,
I wanted to ask him that question. That are you trying to say that those supporting are also having a mental problem? But then so
you
okay,
see, yes, Olivia. Actually, the truth of the matter is, no organism in this universe wants to be colonized or capitalized on or subjected to another's, I mean, power. No organism wants that. Okay. But whatever happens in Africa right now affects Europe, it affects the West, it affects Asia. The world has now become a global village. We are merged. So whatever happens, affects them as well. So if all that is going on in our political scene is bad, coup d'etats, corruption, yes, it's obvious that some of them also benefit from the loot, but there are just a few. You get that? So if all odds are against us and we are seen as though we would fail the entire global economy, then it's better are recolonized. Me, that is the point I'm coming from.
Okay.
Otherwise, yes. Otherwise, who wants to be subjected to someone's, power? No one wants to do that. So I think actually Eric Prince, if you ask me, I don't think he has any psychological issues.
Okay.
I'm
So
sure he's
the colonization will solve the continent's current geopolitical and economic problems, right? That's what
just
you
take a
want.
look at just take a look at countries, the African countries that have a dominance, a lot of European dominance. So South Africa, for instance, see how well they are doing. When you go to Rwanda, you see how well they are doing. Look at Kenya. You get that? So if there's anything either than recolonizing that will meet each other halfway, I am out for it. But as it stands, I cannot scout to find any possible amicable way to resolve our impasse. Like I said earlier, all the positions, almost all, okay, almost all the positions, the portfolios that are occupied in African governments are occupied based on tribal sentiments, nepotist sentiments, religious sentiments. They are not based on merit. You get that? And we cannot rule. We cannot run a universe this way. We are now becoming merged. So we are already merged. So at least we need to rethink. So I still stand by my stance that if we don't change our way of behavior, particularly the coup d'etat are the things I don't even like. They are unconstitutional. It shouldn't be encouraged in any way until we reorient ourselves and then try to change the narrative. I will always be an advocate for recolonization, Olivia.
Because there's always that confusion when we see a state that has skyscrapers and all of that. We begin to think that that state is developing because the West has already set up that kind of a standard. So we begin to see a state like that and think that state is developing. Like when we see some of the states that have white guys, or like South Africa, like he rightly said, a state like South Africa that has some white guys, and
That's a wicked point, eh?
that's a very poor way of looking at it. South Africa has 64% of the black guys of the black population languishing in poverty. 64, as compared to 1% white people and 6% Indians. Look, how many of these white, let's say white guys are what's the percentage of the white population in South Africa? You'll be very surprised that
I am yet
you'll be
to
very
pull
surprised that
that down.
it's not even up to 10%. The
Yeah,
white
but however
not up
little
to
it is, it is
10%.
affecting their economy. It is affecting their economy in a positive manner. However little it is, they are playing a role. That the population that is not great, you would realize that they play a vital role. So even if we have them here that are not even great in number and they are playing that vital role, it's for the
They're
economy.
playing a vital role and leaving 64% people languishing in poverty, abject poverty. Do you know that the whites in South Africa, they are holding about 72% of the arable land, which is supposed to be shared to everyone, to the white black people. I mean,
But if such land is able,
the
if they're
land,
able
the
to
minerals,
cultivate such
the
land to
land.
feed,
If you don't have land, you have nothing. The leader of this guy they call Julius Malema. The reason why most of the black populace or the black people are trying to vote him in or are working hard so that he can come in is because he has a clear policy on this, the redistribution of land. How can you be less than 10% of the population and own more than 80% of the land, or about 60% of the land? This was exactly the same thing in Zimbabwe, that all hell was let loose when a 6% or less than 6% minority owned nearly all of the land. And the President Mugabe wanted to change the trajectory. What do we really want? What does, and we're supporting this kind of immorality. We call it immorality. Social immorality, economic immorality, political immorality. We're supporting, we're perpetrating this kind of immorality. If we say colonialism was bad, and you have the legacy of that colonialism very clear in our eyes, very palpable, and we are unable to dismantle that legacy of colonialism, knowing exactly how it has affected generations, that the fact that people came and took resources here, including human beings, made them rich. The human beings, the economy that was built based on slavery brought about the Industrial Revolution. Slavery, the capital that was built on slavery, brought about Industrial Revolution in America and Britain. And then the slavery also continued. I mean, the colonialism picked it up. And they were still extorting and exploiting not only human resources, but they are not only natural resources, but they are now taking our human capital, even in different ways, where they take our biggest brains to America, to Europe, and all of those places to go out. Because they keep us in what? In the ghettos. So that what? So that we'll be able to be envious of where they are, so that we can come there. And who should come there? The qualified. Those who are of high human capital. They are the ones who should come today. So it's like these are the ghettos and these are the metropoles. You are only qualified to come to the metropoles when you have now left the category of your race. Because leaving the category of a race is that you are empowered to have to be of a huge capital that is not like your people or the rest of the people. Then now you are brought to the other side. This evil continues, and we are wondering why there are terrorist activities, and then we are wondering why there are coup activities, and then we are wondering why there is acute poverty, and then we are wondering why there is so much misery, and then we are wondering why there are so much evil, and then we are thinking, oh, how do you want to relate with human beings without including empathy? How do you talk about human relations, even in trade, in politics, without including empathy? What kind of human relation can be sustained without empathy? If France or America, last time I was talking, before I talked about the federated states which Africans wanted to create. If we created those federated states, we would have increased our human capitals and therefore increased our middle class. And then France will have better ways to trade with us than creating relationships that are antagonistic with us. They will be able to have a better hold on certain economic issues. I mean, play like big brother with the younger brother instead of a master. But they decided to take the position of master and slave. And I'll tell you what, they're going to lose everything. Because when the slave gets up, he does not care. He's going to kill everything. It is a do or die. And so when we're talking about coup tendencies and the rest, when a slave gets up, He gets up. It is about living or dying. The immorality they implanted in the systems. I mean, political immorality everywhere. You cannot imagine the kind of political immorality that goes on. Is it the rituals of killing of children? Is it the sodomy that takes place? You need to know how the states are ruled. Just to keep them down in a cartel or a cabal, which they will always control. And these are the ones now who control their own people.
Okay.
So this terrible way of handling politics, this terrible way of handling humanity is not working again. America, for example, took its time and was going to invest its resources in China. China does not share the same values with them. China does not share the God that they shared. They share with Africans. They took billions of dollars and their billionaires were going there to invest in China. Now they've made China a monster that was sleeping and has risen. If they shared their resources with us, we hold the same values. Would have been one with them, with Africans. In the book that I was telling you about, that I was calling the World After Nelson Mandela, some guys were asking some editors in America, what do you want to gain with this book? I said, look, you are not getting the point, are you? You're not really getting the point. Because let me tell you, if Americans, we don't need military bases. We don't need military bases in Africa. We don't need military bases. If Africans help, if Americans help Africa to trade together, to connect together, to be one, then they will have better access to the resources of Africa, including the human capital and human resources that are there. Then you can do better trading. Presently, what you are doing is simply because of the the slavery spirit, the condescending spirit that has always been with them. That they don't think that the black man he must be a little whiter. So they rush to go to China to go and trade with China. That does not believe in their God. That does not believe in democracy. That does not believe in what they believe in. That has nothing to share with them. They have risen. They make a sleeping giant to rise. Let them deal with it. Let them deal with it. And let them come tomorrow and call us to come and fight wars with them and help them to fight wars. That time is over. We're not going to do that again.
You really think
we're not going to do that kind of services again? We died for them. We died for Europe. Our ancestors are still crying in their graves because they've not seen what we have gained fighting in wars that have nothing to do with us. You know? And then they wanted to take us to go and fight each other. Our people should go and fight Niger. Kill ourselves. Fighting for them. Their interest is what our brothers wanted to go and protect. We need to stop this. This needs to come to an end, and I believe that it will come to an end very soon because we are finding ourselves. Africans are finding themselves through the social media. We are finding ourselves. It could be a good thing that we have the social media and we can link it to the fact that we had colonialism. It is not. We would have had social media by now, maybe before now, if we were led to trade with each other in Africa. As in trans-African trading. Yes, would have discovered technologies that are better off than this one. Maybe technology that can speak even with the spirit world. We have them. We have them. We just need to bring them to the light. Even be better off. Because let me tell you, we have technologies that can communicate with the dead. Do you know that? Do you know Africans have technology that can communicate with the dead? Yes. Yes. We do. We have very high technology. Let me tell you something about our technologies. This one, I don't know whether we'll put it inside our stuff, but we have very high levels of technologies. In my country, specifically in my village, we can create the thunder from nowhere. We can create thunder and lightning that can destroy whatever that we want to destroy.
Oh, so you mean spiritual way or what?
Spiritually, but it's technology. They know how to do it. They put some metals together and concoct some few things.
Then it's true because Africans can use a lot of means to do all sorts of things, amazing things that you couldn't even think of. You know.
Yes. It's
So
a craft.
if
It's a craft. So when they call it witchcraft or not, it's a craft. We just need to develop that craft. It means we take some of these guys and bring them to the governance. Government brings them to a ministry, create a ministry for them, and then you have a head on how we can use that now technology. This is what the Europeans did. Most of these guys you see who are genius, Einstein and all the rest, Albert Einstein and all those guys you are hearing, they were all guys who could see. They were guys who they were in this now here will say they are witches and wizards because they gave us now the white man religion. So now we all the anything we see, they say persecuted is witches and wizards, is witches and wizards. Anything you see that does not fall within the line of what you have given you, it's witches and wizards. Kill them, kill the witches and wizards. So this is what they gave us, you know. So now if we were let to have say a hero who rose and connected the African nations like how Kwame Nkrumah wanted to do it, we would have gone to our own exoteric knowledge. Have you heard about the books of the dead? The books of the dead, the papyrus of the scroll papyrus,
the Egyptian, yes.
Yeah, the papyrus scrolls in the tombs. So when you talk about writing history, and we had them. We wrote books. Our books were there. They have just picked them up and kept them. We could have better technologies than even what we have now if we were given the opportunity to thrive. If we're given the opportunity to thrive, we could have better technologies than what we have now. The problem is that we were suffocated. We didn't come to a level where we thought about interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universally shared values. We have not come to that level. But this is where we need to, and I'm sure that's where the world is heading to. You have a group of people who want to distort or who want to halt that interdependence, mutual prosperity, and human and universally shared values, and which will definitely propel peace. Because there are people, like I said, you have evil people in every society, and you have those who they work with who are naively working with them without knowing that actually they are working with evil people, because they project themselves always with sheep clothing. You know, all the time they are always dressed in sheep clothing. So you may think that these are the good people. They have what they trigger. For example, when they realize that the people are coming together, they'll trigger a racial point or a tribal sentiment.
Certainly, I mean, we keep our fingers crossed to see what happens, especially particularly now that 2024 is also a year of election overload. I mean, over 40 countries are entering elections. I think the outcome in US in November will be something that will shape the geopolitical network. Quincy, to conclude with, I want to re-emphasize that Africa has already been recolonized in several ways.
Okay.
For instance, you take into account soccer. You see the soccer. You see how, I mean, I'm not actually an aficionado of soccer, but I mean it is prima facie. It's evident enough. You see that the youth, we are all consumed in European soccer. We don't even patronize. We don't prioritize our own football. See the Ghana Premier League. Go
It's
to
designed to be that
the
way.
stadium. You won't see anything. So we are already when you go to the internet and you see the content we consume, is just, I mean, like a few level-minded people and those who are now beginning to become awakened that will monitor programs like what we are showing right now. But I mean, a junk majority of us are on social media consuming Western stuff, culture, looking at their dressing, going to do, I mean, makeups, ladies going to, I mean, inject their backsides so that they can be well endowed back there. You see, so we are colonized. We are colonized in several ways.
Okay.
I share Tega's sentiments, but like I said,
Okay, it makes sense. It makes sense both ways. It makes sense. And thank you very much for your idea as well. This comes to the end of our program. And thank you, Tega. Thank you, Paul. And thank our viewers for being here with us. Please don't forget to subscribe and also share and like our page as well. My name is Olivia Quincy. Thank you. Goodbye.